This picture shows the Haisla calendar, which is a photograph of the mountains on the west shore of the Canoe arm of Douglas Channel. Every mountain on that range had a Haisla name. And let's start at the south end. The mountain right in the middle of Douglas Channel was called Siwa. It's named after the channel, which is the mid channel. That's why it is called Siwa, because canoes used to go straight through there. The next mountain is a nearly flat-top mountain on the mainland side of Douglas Channel. Sundays it was called. December 16th, when the sun reached Sundays, and there was a tall tree taller than the surrounding ones. I don't think it was really that tall. That's where the sun sank on December 16th. The Haisla say that the white man's calendar is not accurate. But the Haisla calendar is accurate because it's based directly on the sun. And they became aware there was a group of men who were called the Dugwatha. The word Dugwatha means observers of the setting sun. And there was a certain spot in front of Tsesi's house, particular spot in front of Tsesi's house. And that site now occupied by Ronnie Smith. That was the official site for observing the setting sun. And when the sun reached there, that period, that day was called Kwasilap. Kwasilap means sun sitting down. The sun seemed to sink in the same spot for 2 or 3 days before it started its northward trip. And they became aware that the sun didn't always sink in exactly the same spot. Some years it didn't quite reach that tree. And they call that wheat callus. Wheat callus means didn't quite reach that spot. Other years it would travel just a wee bit beyond that tree. And they call that period Kaskina. Kaskina means walk too far. Wheat callus means didn't quite reach. And that determined the kind of winters that they had. When the sun wheat callus, you had mild winter, milder than other winters, But when the sun Kaskina, you had severe winter conditions. They knew these facts, but they didn't know exactly what caused it. And it's only recently when scientists have become aware that the Earth itself is a great big top, just like a child's top. It spins, and during its spinning process, it wobbles. And that's what called the weekalis or the kafkina, is the earth wobbling on its axis. Now those Dugwasla included a man named Haisla, who must have been a genius, eh? He understood so many things about the sun that one time when the sun reached its northern limit, there's another tree on that incline on a mountain behind Alcan Smelter where the sun reached on June 16th. And one day these Dugwasla were all sitting on that official spot when they got into an argument because the other Dugwasla said that the sun has reached its limit. And Haisla said, no, it's going to be another 1 or 2 days more. And they argued back and forth. One of the other Dugwasla said, how do you know? What makes you so sure that that sun has reached its limit? And he said, because I keep records. Records? What kind of records are you talking about? You don't know anything about. And he said, I'll show you. And he went to his toolbox and he took the cover off, and on the inside of the cover of the toolbox were little marks. In plain words, Haisla had developed his own form of writing. And he had kept track of the days, eh? So many days until the sun reached its limit. And they laughed at him. Oh, what a bunch of little marks mean. They didn't understand that that was a form of writing, eh? So to convince them, Haisla said, all right, tomorrow, when the sun reaches Kastisa, Kastisa means the zenith, eh? Middle of the sky. The sun is going to disappear. And it won't come back until everybody in this village gets down to the beach and yicha, dances, eh? And the other Dugwasla, here's a chance to really show Haisla up. They were going to tease him, eh? So he said, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. So the next day when the sun reached the zenith, he went down to the beach and he started calling, all right, you Haisla, you come down to the beach and help me, because if you don't, the sun is not going to come back. And they laughed at him, eh? But when the sun did reach Kastisa, the sun started to disappear, the earth darkened, and if you've ever been in an eclipse, it's an eerie feeling, eh? There's still sunlight, but it's a clear light, eh? People got terrified. And Haisla hollered out and he said, yicha! Everybody started dancing all over the beach, scared out of their minds. And when it was at its darkest, Haisla hollered out, you Haisla, you silly Haisla. You don't know what's going on. The sun merely went in a shadow. It merely went into a shadow. And will have come back even if you didn't act like a bunch of fools. So, Haisla was Tsasi's friend. He was Tsasi's brave. And she didn't want to see him embarrassed. No way did she want to see his brave embarrassed. And there was a great big stump on the beach. So she went behind this big stump, and that's where he did his dancing. But he didn't realize that the night before, somebody had gone behind that big stump and relieved himself. And so she stepped all over this mess, and it oozed in between his toes. When the sun came back out, everybody gathered in groups. And she was there with all this muck between his toes. He was more embarrassed than anybody else, including Haisla. Ever after that, Haisla was not questioned. They knew that he knew what was going on. Now, that fact shows that Haisla must have been aware of the orbit of the sun and the orbit of the moon. There's no way that he could have realized that the sun would go into a total eclipse at that particular time. Now, I've always thought that it would be interesting to find out when the sun went into an eclipse in the middle of the day, in the middle of June.
So that would give us the year.
That would give us the year, yeah. But Haisla was, he must have been a genius. There's nobody who would know that the sun would go in an eclipse a particular hour, a particular day, and a particular part of the year, unless he knew all these things. But let's go back to the names of the mountains. The first high mountain is Kitasa. It's named after the bay along the shoreline, Kitasa. And we have a reserve there. And another important mountain, it doesn't look high on this picture, but it is fairly high, and it's called Canoe. When the sun reached the top of that mountain, sometime in the middle of March, once it reached the top of the mountain, people rejoiced, because that meant the end of winter. After that, there will be no more heavy north winds, because that really was important to them, because they could go fishing, they could go Ratchan, they could get
all the supplies were gone.
Yeah, yeah. That's why it was so important to know when the sun reached Canoe. The sun kept on moving until it got to Gelwanuxw. Gelwanuxw means the mountain which looks close. We don't know exactly when, but one of the men, acting on his own, he thought that he would start from Beas. I suppose it was time when they were living in Beas, but he thought that he would climb that mountain, kill a mountain goat, and come back down and bring the meat home for supper. He didn't realize that it was a long distance up the valley there, much further than what appears in any picture. The first day he only got as far as the base of the mountain before nightfall, and he had to go home. He organized himself so that he could camp there. And he did eventually get to the top of that mountain, get his meat, and then return. But ever after that, it's been called Gelwanuxw, the mountain which looks close. All right. The sun continues on its northward trip until it reaches that outline on top of that mountain. And when the sun reached there, the herring in the ocean started spawning. So it was called Gelwanuxw. That just means herring canoe.
Som stukla Islam aliseikanain lakkalstumskre.
Well, it shows right there. Eh? I took this last winter. Eh? The sun kept on going till the next indentation on the mountain top. It doesn't look much in this picture, probably because of the angle that I when I took the picture. Eh? But that's the Uligan canoe. When the sun reached Gelwanuxw, the people would take off up to the old Uligan camp. No, what the heck do we call? Some gas, yeah. They'd move up to some gas, and they had cabins there. There was a lot of cabins. I'm guessing that there were 30 or 40 cabins altogether, eh? And they waited there. But that, an indication that the Uligans would be in the river was when the sun reached the Uligan canoe, eh? Gelwanuxw. The sun kept on going until it reached halfway down the slant of that mountain, which is behind Alcan's smelter. It's directly behind Alcan, so it doesn't look like it in this picture because of the angle. Eh? But there was another tall tree halfway down the mountain where the sun sank on June 16th. But let's continue with the names of the mountains on the west side of the Kitimat Valley, because that was most important to the Haisla. Eh? The first small mountain, Quakanala stumps. Quakanala is yellow cedar. Eh? So the name of that mountain in Haisla is Yellow Cedar Mountain. It is a most important little mountain. In the spring of the year, sometime in June, groups of women would climb that mountain, and they would strip the bark off the yellow cedar trees, which used to grow there in abundance.
You ever go there?
No. Oh, I trapped in both those valleys beside it, but not on the mountain itself. Anyway, they put these bundles of yellow cedar bark. They made into bundles, eh? They carried them down to a little slough, exactly where Alcan's smelter is now. The chemicals in that slough seemed to have the right chemicals, eh? And they would steep these bundles of yellow cedar bark in that slough, and they'd put rocks on top of them to keep them immersed. And they left it there for about a month or so. And what do you say when you make home brew? What do you call that? There's a term, I can't recall.
Ferment.
Ferment, yeah. They allowed the bundles of yellow cedar bark to ferment. And by the time, in a month or so, they would go back, same groups of women would go back there, and they would separate the inner bark from the rough outer bark, eh? And provided you had allowed it to ferment long enough, it just came apart easily. Throw all the rough outer bark away. Then they would take the inner bark and they would put it on a flat rock or some flat object, and using another rock, a small rock, they would pound that yellow cedar bark till it came out in nice big fluffy masses, just like today's wool, only a nice yellow tint. Eh? Then they would allow these woolly masses to dry. Then when it was dry, they spun it into yarn, rough yarn, eh? As big as your little finger. Then they would hand weave it into blankets, clothing, just as warm as today's woolen blanket, and could last a lifetime. With care, it could last a lifetime. Quanat, that was called. That was one of the prized possessions, was quanat. They made that into their winter clothing, just as warm as any woolen clothes of today. That's why Gelwanuxw was of much importance to the Haisla. Today, that mountain is practically bare. It was logged off, and then the saddleback looper completed the destruction. There's nothing there now. Nothing of value anyway. Then the next mountain is Canoe. Canoe means the corner mountain. It's a large mountain, and it is used for hunting mountain goat. Then we keep on to one of the most important parts of this area, to Neenaclachala. Neenaclachala means the slides. And partway down that mountain, there's a small lake, a little narrow lake that we call Haisla. Haisla means Goose Lake.
Is that the one that the Qomks are renamed Dogbone Lake?
I don't know.
That Dogbone Lake is right behind where the hotel is?
Yeah, I didn't know that. To me, it's always Haisla. Haisla was, its importance was that there's so much food readily available there during the summer months. About the 20th of June, the geese who nested there, their eggs, their young from their eggs, was ready to fly after June 20th. And before they flew, young men from the village at Gelwanuxw would climb up to that lake, groups of them, And when they got up there, they would strip the bark off cedar trees, and they'd twisted that into ropes, tied them together, and they organized their party. 2 young men, one on each end of that rope, would drag that rope along the bottom of that little lake to one end of the lake, and all the goslings, who were almost ready to fly at that time. The goslings would all keep away from that rope, and they'd get to one end of the lake, then they'd crawl out of the lake. But other groups of young men were strung along in the forest, and they wait till this gosling came near the forest, and they'd go out and twist necks. There's nothing tastier than young gosling. One
Stuff and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. One young man could carry 3 or 4 goslings. You couldn't carry 2 because they're quite heavy. Yeah. You could carry 3 or 4. They'd be completely illegal in the game department's eyes nowadays.
Yeah, but the French like to serve duckling.
Yeah. But that was one of the foods that was available there in that part of the year. The other part of the year, the same groups of young men would climb up there to get a bomb. A bomb is
Fern root.
fiddle fern roots. And those slides on the west side of that little lake, there was fields of A-bomb there. And they would bring baskets with them, and they'd fill their baskets with A-bomb because they were big. They were a nice big fat A-bomb which grew there. Each family would have 4 or 5 bags of A-bomb which they buried in a corner of their houses, the wooden floor, earth floor. And they'd bury the A-bomb there and cover it with earth. And as they needed A-bomb, they'd take out as many as they needed, one for each family, and they buried that in a hearth. Just leave that overnight, eh? There'd be enough heat there to cook that A-bomb, so that next morning, for breakfast, they'd dig out that A-bomb, and that was for breakfast, eh? There's nothing tastier than A-bomb, especially if you eat it together with tziml. Goes like bacon and eggs, eh? Fine food.
Chairman would love that.
Yeah. And then later still, the same young men would climb up there, and the mountain goat. The main winter food supply of mountain goat is fiddle fern roots. Mountain goats from all surrounding areas would congregate on those slides to feed on this A-bomb, eh? And the young men would go hunting a mountain goat. And that was a major part of their diet. It was barbecued, then dried mountain goat meat, together with the tolach, the abdominal cavity of mountain goat is lined with a sheet of fat. Eh? This is as thick as your thumb. That is the goat's reserve supply of nourishment for the winter. Eh? But the Haisla, when they kill the goat, they open the belly of the animal, then reach inside with their hands and they tear that loose from the inner organs of the goat, and it come out in big sheets, and it hangs up and dries.
Maasvlietlet, and you say?
Tolach.
Yeah, but there's a name for that.
Yichsameh.
Yichsameh.
Yeah.
I don't know how much total would get out of me.
And if they dried it.
They dried that, and boy, that was good. You cut off you cut off a little square. That was you put on the end of a stick and roast that on the open fire. Most of the fat drips away. Eh? All that would be left. What do you call it when they do that with pork?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, boys, kids, yeah, we just loved that. But in those times, it was an important part of the diet, eh? And it all came from Gelwanuxw. The mountain goat meat, the goslings, and the A-bomb all came from that area. That's why it was so important to the Haisla. All right. Going around Gelwanuxw was Kapalala. Kapalala means gravel mountain, eh? And that was another important mountain goat hunting area. It's a big mountain, but halfway up one side there's a cliff, straight down, rocks hundreds of feet high. Halfway up there was a grassy area with a narrow path into that grassy area, and a mountain goat would follow that little path into that grassy area, and they'd feed in there. And the Haisla hunters would climb that mountain with their pockets loaded full of gravel. They didn't need any weapons of any kind. All they carried was gravel. And they'd climb one side of the mountain, out of sight of the goat, then they'd get above the herds of goat. And there's nothing that mountain goat fear more than avalanche. And these young men, once they had got above the mountain goat, they'd throw handfuls of gravel down a mountainside. And this gravel would go clattering down a mountainside and scare the heck out of those goats. And they would jump over the side, and they'd break legs, they'd break their necks or break their back. All the Haisla hunters had to do was climb down there and pick the goat up. That was the importance of Kapalala to the Haisla. Okay?